Hi guys, Christian David Anong here from BSE 3C, and we're here in the ECE37 microprocessors, and we're going to do the Module 2 performance task. Previously, we've tested the CPU benchmark of our laptop through the CPU-Z benchmark, and this is the result that we get. You can see that this is what we are using, the Ryzen 5 2500U. And in this module 2 performance task, we are asked to compare it with the nearest performing CPU. So the nearest performing CPU is the Intel Core i7-8565U. So that's what we're going to differentiate with. We've tested the different types. We've tested these two with different types of benchmarks and games. So for the productivity benchmarks, the Cinebench R15, the for the first, the Ryzen 5 got the 534 points, while the Core i7 got the 652 points. The Ryzen 5 sits between Core i7440HQ and Core i5 6440HQ, while the Core i7 sits between Ryzen 7 2700U and Ryzen 5 3500U. The Ryzen 5 2500U's performance earns it 27th place overall, while the Core i7 8565Cu's performance earns its 24th place. These two are the average performers with its 4 cores and 8 threads in this benchmark. Next productivity benchmark is the Photoshop, where Ryzen 5 2500U got 778.8 points, while the Core i7 8565U got the 847 points. The Ryzen 5 2500U sits between Core i7 and Core i5 3380M and Core i7 6650U, while the Core i7 sits between Ryzen 5 4600U and Ryzen 5 2600H. The benchmark favored the Core i7 8565U, though it leads over Ryzen 7 3780U pretty small. The Core i7 8565U's performance earns its 41st place overall, while the Ryzen 5 2500U's performance earns its 63rd place overall. Again, this too is average performer with its 4 cores and 8 threads in this benchmark. Last productivity benchmark is the Adobe Premiere. We can see that the Ryzen 5 2500U got the 77.16 points, while the Core i7 8565U got with the amazing 654.7 points. The Ryzen 5 2500U sits between Core i3 8100 and Ryzen 3 4300U. The Ryzen 5 2500U's performance earns its 58th place overall, while the Core i7 8565U's performance earns its 36th place overall. But then again, these two cores is an average performers with its 4 cores and 8 threads in this benchmark. Next is we've tested these two CPUs with the three top three games of the 2021 according to twinfinite.com. So the gaming performance of these two is almost the same, with the AMD Ryzen 5 2500 satisfies 99.99% minimum and 94% recommended requirements of all games known to us, while the Intel Core i7 8565U satisfies 99% minimum and 92% recommended requirements for all games known to us. For the first game is the Crossfire X, where the two got the same points. Yes. Next is the League of Legends, where still the same, no lead for the Ryzen 5 or Core i7. Last is the Fortnite. So in this gaming experience, we can no longer different these two because they're almost exactly the same. About in technical specs, this is the basic parameters in the Ryzen 5 2500U and Core i7 8565U. In the These two got a 4 quad core in their physical cores, and then 8 threads, the same 8 threads, but in the base clock speed, the Ryzen 5 got a 2 GHz while the Core i7 got 1.8 GHz. It is the same with the boost clock speed. In the bus support, we got no data from the Ryzen 5, while the Core i7 got 4 GTS. For the L1 cache, we got 384 kilobytes for the Ryzen 5 and the 256 kilobytes for the Core i7. For the memory specs, the supported memory types are the DDR4 2400 for the Ryzen 5 and DDR4 for the Core i7. The maximum memory size of the Ryzen 5 is 32 gig, while on the Core i7 is 34 gig. The max memory channels on the Ryzen 5 on the both channels are 2. About the compatibility, the number of CPUs in the configurations are both the same, like 1. And for the socket, the Ryzen 5 got FP5, while the Core i7 got FCBGA 1528. For the thermal design, both got the 15 watt. For the general info, the place and performance rating of the Ryzen 5 is 897th place, while the place of the Core i7 is 924th place. The market segment of these two are the laptops. On the other hand, the architecture code name of the Ryzen 5 2500U is the Raven Ridge, while the Core i7 is the Whiskey Lake. Ryzen 5 2500U was released on the 26th of October 2017, while the Core i7 was released 28th of August 2018. So there's almost a year gap between the two. Now let's see for the price. The price difference a lot uh, is a lot. So for the price of the Ryzen 5 2500U is $674, and on the Core i7 the price is $985. So there's almost a $300 difference. So when we convert it to peso, it's about what 300. So it's almost 15,000, or yes, 15,000. For the conclusion, which among the two processors is more powerful in terms of raw computational ability and productivity? So in productivity tasks, from the previous sources, we got to see that the Intel Core i7 8565U is better performing device from Ryzen 5 2500U, which because Intel Core i7 8565U always gets a higher place in the benchmarkings about the productivity tasks. Second, which among the two processors is more powerful in terms of overall gaming performance? So we saw from the chart that they are the same with their gaming performance. Third, which among the two processors is most cost effective? So by the time of this judging, we can see that the Ryzen 5 2500U is the most cost effective among these two because of its cheaper price. Yet their performance are almost exactly the same. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.